I was standing by the window of my apartment, the late afternoon sun catching the silk sleeve of my blouse like it had something to prove. Below, New York traffic roared in its usual symphony, horns, sirens, and that occasional impatient shout. I liked the noise. It reminded me I wasn't invisible anymore. The espresso machine hummed in the kitchen, releasing the sharp scent of coffee into the air. My phone buzzed against the marble counter. I almost ignored it. Half my texts were work-related, but the preview on the lock screen made my breath hitch. Ethan's wedding, family dinner this weekend. We expect you there. Ethan, my younger brother, the one everyone swore was the golden child. The one who never noticed when I disappeared, who probably thought I was still somewhere in the same small town, orbiting quietly around the family like a shadow. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had moved to another state 2 years ago, rebuilt myself from the ground up, and not a single person noticed. No calls. No visits. Not even a missed birthday card. And now I was suddenly the villain for hesitating to attend a wedding that celebrated everyone but me. My reflection in the glass window stared back, composed, successful, but carrying scars I'd learned to keep hidden. My phone buzzed again, insistently this time, as if my silence could erase years of being overlooked. I exhaled slowly, tasting both bitterness and relief. Maybe it was finally time they learned who I had become. I still remember the night it all cracked open. It was late spring, the kind where the air smelled faintly of cut grass and rain. I was 23, standing in our family's kitchen in Ohio, clutching my acceptance letter to a graduate program in Boston. My hands shook as I held it out to Mom, the paper crinkling under my fingers. She barely looked up from the sink, where she was scrubbing a casserole dish. "That's nice, honey. But are you sure it's practical? Ethan just got promoted at the bank. We're all so proud of him." There it was again. Every achievement of mine, measured against Ethan's shadow. I swallowed hard, a lump rising in my throat. It's a full scholarship. I earned this. It's what I've been working toward for years. Dad folded his newspaper, without glancing at me. "Boston's too far. You should think about staying close to family. You'll need us eventually." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I wanted them to beam at me, to celebrate the way they did when Ethan scored touchdowns in high school or landed his first job. Instead, I felt the familiar chill of dismissal wrap around me. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, the glow of the desk lamp soft against peeling posters. My grandmother's locket rested in my palm, the one she gave me when I was 16, whispering, "You have a fire in you, Emily. Don't let anyone put it out." She had passed away 2 years earlier, but her words were stitched into me like armor. I packed a small suitcase before dawn, tucking the locket safely inside. Each folded shirt felt like defiance, each zipped pocket like a vow. My heart raced as I slipped down the stairs, careful not to wake anyone. For once, I wasn't asking permission. I left the house quietly, the night air cool against my cheeks. The bus station was half empty, the neon lights buzzing like an impatient heartbeat. With one ticket in hand, I boarded without looking back. The sting of rejection still pulsed in my chest, but beneath it burned something stronger: resolve. If they couldn't see me, I would build a life so undeniable they would have no choice but to. And so I disappeared. Not into failure as they might have predicted, but into possibility. Boston didn't greet me with open arms. It was loud, cold, and unflinchingly indifferent to a girl dragging 2 suitcases and a broken heart through South Station. I remember standing on the curb that first morning, the city's skyline glittering like it had better things to do than notice me. Maybe it did. But I noticed myself for the first time in years. I rented a room in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, the kind that rattled every time someone ran the dryers. The wallpaper peeled in strips, and the radiator hissed like it had secrets to tell. But it was mine. I bought a cheap desk from Craigslist, set it up under the only window, and pinned my grandmother's locket on the curtain so the morning sun would catch it. A reminder: fire doesn't go out, it spreads. Graduate school was brutal. I worked nights at a cafe, pouring lattes until my wrists ached, then dragged myself to lectures with bleary eyes. There were nights I cried in the bathroom, muffling the sound so my roommates wouldn't hear. Nights I almost believed my parents were right, that I'd come running back. But then came Dr. Lawson. She was a professor in her 60s, sharp-eyed and unapologetic, the kind of woman who filled a room without raising her voice. After I presented a paper one afternoon, she pulled me aside. "You have talent, Emily. Real talent. Stop apologizing for taking up space." Her words rooted deep. She started mentoring me, editing my drafts, pushing me to apply for internships I thought were out of reach. When I landed a research position at a major firm, I cried in the library bathroom, clutching the acceptance email like it was oxygen. The climb was slow but steady. My first paycheck barely covered rent, but the first time I signed my name on an official report, my hands trembled with pride. A year later, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment with hardwood floors and windows that overlooked the Charles River. I celebrated by buying myself a modest gold bracelet. Nothing flashy, just a quiet symbol that I was building something no one could take away. On social media, I kept things vague. A snapshot of the river here, a coffee cup there. Nothing to invite questions from Ohio. I didn't owe them my story, not yet. They hadn't earned it. But behind the curated silence, I was transforming. Long nights blurred into early mornings, and one success led to another. My first client project turned into a permanent contract. My first salary raise gave me enough to fly to Europe for a conference, my first passport stamp. I stood in Paris, looking at the Seine, and whispered to myself, "They didn't notice when I left, but they'll notice what I've become." Every time doubt crept in, I touched the locket. My grandmother's fire burned steady inside me, brighter with every risk I took. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a life no dismissal could erase. The wedding invitation didn't come in a gilded envelope. It came as a text message, blunt and assumptive. "Dinner Friday night. Ethan's wedding prep. We'll see you there." At first I laughed. A hollow, disbelieving sound that echoed off the high ceilings of my apartment. My family hadn't noticed when I left Ohio, hadn't noticed when I crossed state lines, hadn't noticed when I built an entire life from the ground up. But now, because Ethan was getting married, I was suddenly expected to appear, to smile, to play the dutiful sister. I didn't respond. Not immediately. Instead, I let the silence do its work. Days passed, and the texts multiplied, some guilt-laced, some sharp, some dripping with faux concern. Finally, my mother called. "Emily, why haven't you answered? Everyone's waiting on you. You're his sister, you have to be here." Her voice was as sharp as I remembered, clipped with irritation more than longing. For a moment, the old version of me, the girl desperate for approval, wanted to cave. But then I looked around my office. The shelves lined with books I'd published chapters in. The framed certificate from my firm naming me Director of Research Strategy at only 28. The sleek art piece I'd bought on a whim in Paris, hanging proudly above my desk. Every detail whispered a truth my family had never cared to know. I had built something extraordinary without them. "I don't think I'll make it," I said, my voice steady. Silence on the other end. Then a sharp inhale. "Emily, don't be dramatic. Everyone will be asking about you. Don't embarrass us." Embarrass them. As if my absence was a greater shame than their absence had ever been. I almost hung up, but something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the years of silence. Maybe it was the fire in my chest. Either way, I decided the time for hiding was over. "Fine," I said. "Then come here. See me. If you want me at the wedding, you should at least know who you're inviting." And so they did. A week later, my parents arrived at my building in Manhattan, their expressions strained with the effort of civility. Ethan trailed behind them, his fiancée, a perfectly polished blonde, clutching his arm. I led them into the lobby, where marble floors gleamed under soft lighting, then into the private elevator that whisked us to the top floor. My apartment opened onto floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city skyline like a painting. For a moment, no one spoke. I watched their eyes travel. Over the leather furniture, the abstract art, the glass shelves filled with awards and photographs. A picture of me presenting at an international conference. Another shaking hands with Dr. Lawson. The gold bracelet on my wrist glinting as I poured coffee into porcelain cups. "This is yours?" Ethan asked finally, disbelief dripping from his voice. "All of it," I said simply. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "We didn't realize you'd done so well." Of course they didn't. They never asked. I let the silence stretch, savoring the way the balance of power tilted in the room. For the first time in my life, they were the ones scrambling for footing. "I built this," I said, my voice even but firm. "Every degree, every late night, every risk, I did it without you. You never noticed when I left. You never asked where I was. And now you expect me to show up like nothing happened." My mother's cheeks flushed crimson. Ethan looked down, fiddling with his cufflinks. His fiancée's polite smile faltered. I leaned back against the counter, calm as the city lights flickered on outside. If I'm the villain in this story, it's only because I stopped playing the part you wrote for me. The silence that hung in my living room felt heavy, almost theatrical, like the pause before a curtain rises. My parents looked unsettled. Ethan avoided my eyes, and his fiancée shifted uncomfortably on the leather sofa. For once, I wasn't the girl begging for acknowledgement. I was the woman holding the stage. I set my coffee cup down carefully, the porcelain clinking against the saucer. "You want me at the wedding," I began, "but I won't walk back into that family dynamic where I'm invisible. If I come, there are conditions." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said firmly, starting with respect. "No more dismissing my choices. No more comparing me to Ethan. I've earned my life, and I won't shrink to make anyone comfortable." My father shifted, clearly unprepared for the calm steel in my tone. "Emily, don't make this harder than it has to be." I leaned forward slightly, my voice soft but unwavering. "It's already been hard. For years. And I survived it. Now I get to decide the terms." Ethan finally spoke, his voice defensive. "So, what? Are you saying you'll only come if we treat you like some celebrity?" I almost laughed. "No. I'm saying I'll only come if you treat me like your equal. If you acknowledge me as your sister, your daughter, not your afterthought." I turned to my mother. Mom, you need to stop hiding behind criticism. You cut me down because you were afraid I'd leave. I did leave. And I thrived anyway. If you want me there, you need to let go of the need to control and start actually listening." Her face stiffened, but she didn't speak. Then I faced my father. "You always said I'd need you eventually. Maybe that was true once. But the truth is I don't. Not financially, not emotionally. If you want a relationship with me now, it has to be built on choice, not dependence." His jaw tightened, but there was something in his eyes, shame, maybe, or recognition, that told me the words landed. Finally, I looked at Ethan. "You were the golden child, and it wasn't your fault. But you never asked where I was, never checked in, never wondered why your sister vanished from holidays. If you want me at your wedding, I need one thing from you: acknowledgement. Look at me. Say I matter too." His fiancée's hand tightened around his, urging him to respond. For the first time in years, he met my gaze. "You do matter, Emily." I didn't know how to say it. The room softened, just slightly. I sat back, letting the weight of my words settle. "If those conditions are too much, I'll send a gift and my well wishes. But if you want me there, truly there, then you'll have to meet me halfway." The ball was in their court now. For once, I wasn't the one begging to be seen. The days after that meeting were quiet. No texts, no calls. I half expected them to retreat into old patterns, to let silence swallow everything again. And maybe a part of me was ready for that. I had survived before. I could survive without them now. But then, 3 days before the wedding, an envelope slid under my apartment door. Inside was a handwritten note, my mother's looping script, uneven as if the pen had hesitated. "We weren't listening. We're ready to try. Please come." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't an apology for every dismissal or every time I'd been overlooked. But it was something. And for me, something was a beginning. At the wedding, I didn't arrive as the quiet sister on the sidelines. I arrived in a midnight blue dress, my grandmother's locket resting against my collarbone. When my mother hugged me at the door, she held on a moment longer than I expected. My father's smile was stiff but genuine. Ethan squeezed my hand before walking down the aisle. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't instant healing. But it was recognition. And for the first time, I felt it, not just in their eyes but in my own reflection, that I belonged, not because they allowed it, but because I claimed it. Later that night, as the music swelled and laughter filled the hall, I slipped outside for air. The moonlight glinted off the locket, cool against my skin. I traced it with my thumb, remembering my grandmother's voice. "You have a fire in you, Emily. Don't let anyone put it out." She was right. The fire hadn't gone out. It had carried me across states, through years of silence, and into the woman I was now. I wasn't the villain for refusing their invitation. I was the author of my own story. And finally, they had started to read it.